Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to do the ovarian cycle, and then tomorrow we will do the uterine cycle. Here's the female reproductive system. We will be talking about what happens in the ovaries today. And then tomorrow we will be talking about what happens in the uterus. These two cycles are interwoven with each other to regulate your entire menstrual cycle, which is, as Dr. Christie said on Friday, the biological purpose for your existence on this earth is to reproduce. I tell my AP Bio students that all the time. If you want to take a philosophy class as to why are we here, what's the purpose of life, what does life mean, take philosophy. In biology, it is easy. We are here to reproduce. And your uterus and your ovaries are always cycling, or they're always cycling to prepare for reproduction. So today we're going to focus on what the ovaries go through. Hopefully we'll finish today. And then tomorrow we'll talk about what the uterus goes through. And they actually kind of play off of each other. They happen simultaneously over the course of an entire menstrual cycle. So I just copy and pasted a document. Let's see if I can put it down here. Actually, that's there we go. 7th period. Thank you. Yes, perfect. Okay. So we're going to need that for later. All right. So let's get into today's lesson. Actually, it's a little too far away. Let's bring it over here. Down here, actually. There we go. Okay, I'm ready. You want to go ahead and write a title? I just need to get ready. It's called the ovarian cycle. It's spelled exactly how it sounds. Okay, there may be some things that Dr. Carter mentioned on Friday that you'll hear today. Again, it's all really the same stuff. Some of the stuff she mentioned very well on Friday. Your ovaries are your gonads, just like the male gonads are the testes. The female gonads are the ovaries. Ovaries. The ovaries are the female gonads. Gonads are structures that produce gametes. Like the male gamete is sperm, the female gamete are oocytes or eggs. So the gonads are what make them. Ovaries produce really 3 things. They produce oocytes, which are egg cells. And they also produce 2 hormones. Do you recall what they are? Estrogen. And what's the other one? Progesterone. Very good. Estrogen and progesterone is secreted into your bloodstream, ladies. So even if you were to have a tubal ligation where you had your fallopian tubes basically cut out or severed, that's not going to cut the flow of sperm. That would just be like saying when a male has a vasectomy, he does not lose his testosterone flow. You would actually have to remove the ovaries to stop estrogen and progesterone. You would have to remove the testes to stop the flow of testosterone. Well, as Dr. Christie said on Friday, on average, a menstrual cycle is 28 days. But remember, an average means that there can be values that are above it, and there are values that are below it. And when I was doing my research to get these notes ready for you guys, I learned that only 10 to 15% of women have a 28-day cycle. So everyone is different. You guys are different heights, you're different hair color, skin color, eye color, nose shape, ear shape, body type. Why would your menstrual cycle not be part of that category of what makes me different than my neighbor? Everybody's different. You're all human, but you'll have your variations. A cycle can typically go from 21 days all the way up to perhaps 40 days. So you could go an entire month without a menstrual cycle. It could happen. Some women may get a little nervous. Oh my gosh, am I pregnant? What's going on? Something might be wrong. This also includes why a lot of women may not know that they're pregnant for perhaps the entire first trimester. That's 3 months. For some women, that's just 2 menstrual cycles. That's it. Now, the ovarian cycle occurs at the same time as the uterine cycle. We will do the uterine cycle for the next lesson. But the ovarian cycle consists of 2 stages. And this is where I want you guys to look over here at the diagram. This is not the exact diagram I handed you, but it's pretty close. What I am boxing in green right here is what we're talking about today. Okay? This is the ovarian cycle. And your ovarian cycle generally has 2 phases. What happens before ovulation and what happens after ovulation. If you don't know, ovulation is when your ovary actually releases an egg. And I'm going to talk about that a little later. And I'm going to double down on what I said where women are lions, Lions. They go through a lot. And some of the guys may not even realize it. We talked about speculums and doctor's visits and all this stuff before, but there's even more stuff that's biologically natural that you may have no idea. Everything that is going to happen before ovulation, right here, that I'm highlighting in yellow, this is called the follicular phase. This is the first of 2 stages of the ovarian cycle. Everything that happens after ovulation is called the luteal phase. These are the 2 phases that we will be discussing today. Now, I would also like to go one step further for your benefit, boys and girls, is that the handout that I provided you did not identify which hormone is which. So if you can zoom in on the very first row of information, I want you to notice that there are 2 hormones. The H in both of those stands for hormones. You have FSH and LH. In order to be sure that you label them appropriately, LH is the hormone that has the massive spike on day 14. So if you can label that line LH, and then the hormone that has a more modest spike has that one is FSH. I will be talking about those 2 hormones later today. Okay. Well, I want you all to take a look at the ovarian cycle, and something I want you to pay attention to is a follicle. Now, this red structure inside, that is your egg cell. The follicle is the kind of orangish thing that is growing around it. And I want to talk about that today. So let's go back over here. We'll come back to that diagram. And I want to define for you exactly what a follicle is. But before we get to that, let's get to the first stage. The first stage is called the follicular stage. or the follicular phase. Same thing. In this stage, a follicle grows around an oocyte. What is an oocyte? An egg cell. And begins to secrete increasing amounts of estrogen. That estrogen has a purpose. This is going to be kind of complicated, girls, no pun intended, but there are a lot of things happening simultaneously. Stuff that we are talking about today is stuff that we're not talking about till tomorrow. So I will have to kind of go into the future and talk about what I expected to talk about tomorrow today. It's got to go back and forth. What I want you to know is you are not going ovarian cycle first and uterine cycle next. They happen at the same time. They're happening simultaneously. So this leads me to answer the question, what the heck is a follicle? I know what an egg cell is. That's an oocyte. That's a female gamete. That's what half of my DNA came from. Mom, what's a follicle? Here we go. A follicle is a small spherical group of cells enclosing a cavity in which some other structure grows. Now, this some other structure that's growing in the follicle, what do you suppose that is? The egg cell is correct. That some other structure is the oocyte. Girls, you grow follicles every cycle, which I'll go out on a limb and say that's every month. It's going to look like this, if y'all can follow along with me. Let's say we have day 1, 8, 13, and 14. We'll just draw what it looks like after 4 different time periods during the 14-day cycle, because the follicular stage does take place between days 1 and 14. I'll be sure to officially say that. So there's an egg cell. There's an egg cell. There's an egg. And there's an egg. You'll see why I drew them uneven. All right. Now, on day 1, take a look at the follicle. It surrounds the egg cell. It's not very big at all. It's just a bundle of cells. Are all the cells in your body the same size and shape? Absolutely not. Your egg cell is actually the biggest cell in the human body. So it makes sense that every other cell would be smaller. So there's your follicle on day 1. Let's go forward in a week. Here's day 8. It's gotten a lot bigger. Then we continue on to day 15 or day 13. Look how big it is now. Try not to have this take all day. Here we go. And then something very unique happens on day 14. You remember, if you have a 28-day cycle, what happens on day 14? Ovulation. Look what happens to the follicle. Whoop, wrong size. The follicle basically spits out the egg like it's a nasty piece of sushi. Just spits it out. Not only does the egg cell get spit out of the follicle, it gets spit out of the entire ovary. Noah, when males produce sperm, where does the sperm go after the testes? Do you remember? What's the next step after the testes? Very good, the epididymis. And then Tyler, where does it go after the epididymis? Tubes. Men don't have fallopian tubes. Vas deferens, and then the prostate. But here's my question, guys. When your testes produce sperm, do your testes explode? That's a weird question. Here's why I ask it. Because every month when a woman actually ovulates, it's not like the egg goes, just kind of passes through the fallopian tube. It explodes out of the ovary. It literally just gets blasted out of there. And on Friday, Dr. Christie said that if you are a girl and you have very small cysts on your ovaries, that is perfectly normal, because that is just a sign that you are naturally ovulating. Your cysts should go away in a couple of days. When you ovulate, an egg cell actually gets just shot out of there. It ruptures out. And some girls can actually feel this. I remember I had an ex-girlfriend in college. She goes, I can feel it when I ovulate. I go, what? First off, I was like, what's ovulation? And then I had to learn that. And then she goes, I can feel it. Some girls can actually feel it. It's like a little pain. There's a German name for it. I can't remember the name of it. Your book says it. But you can feel just a little twinge on one side of your body, because girls, you typically ovulate alternating sides every month. Right? March is the left side, April is the right side, May is the so on. And also, keep this in mind. Your ovary and your fallopian tube are not connected. So let's say that my keys here is an egg cell. I'm an ovary. That sink is the opening to a fallopian tube. The egg does not always make it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. There it did. Sometimes it doesn't go in there. You hope it does, but it doesn't always, isn't always guaranteed. I'll get them back there. Don't worry. I know where they are. All right. So anyway, that is basically what happens during the follicular phase, guys. So to continue with your notes, this is, if I didn't already mention this is going to be days 1 through 14. This is assuming that you have a 28-day cycle. I know with some people it can be more. I know with some people it can be less. And then on day 14, you have ovulation. And this is where I want to go up back to your handout. Ladies, on day 13 or 14-ish, right around then, I want you to take a look at the LH hormone. This is really its main job in females. Its levels are pretty static during the follicular phase. All of a sudden, it explodes. That huge spike in LH hormone is what allows you to ovulate in the first place. So everyone knows that there's different types of birth control out there. The main purpose of birth control is to prevent ovulation. Can a sperm fertilize an egg if there is no egg? No, of course not. So if you want to stop an egg cell from being available, you need to stop this level of hormone called LH hormone from actually spiking like that in the first place. And so there are some birth control pills that will act as the opposite of LH. And that's going to be estrogen and progesterone. I want you to take a look at that red line. You don't need to write anything down on this one. This is going to be saved for tomorrow, but I told you I had to mention some of tomorrow's stuff today. Girls, you have two sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Look at me. When estrogen and progesterone are high, LH and FSH are low. Follow my logic here. If LH is low, are you going to have that huge spike? Will you release an egg? Will you get pregnant? Theoretically, no. So guess what hormones, birth control pills, for example, release into your bloodstream? Estrogen and progesterone. You are basically tricking your body into thinking that it is pregnant. And think about what your body goes through when you're pregnant. When you are pregnant, do you shed your lining? No. When you are pregnant, do you ovulate an egg cell? No. So you trick your body into thinking that the womb has got a little bun in the oven, but it doesn't. And then you go on a cycle or you take a part of the birth control pill where you shed your lining. If you ever look at the actual 8 or 28-day cycle that they sell those little pills, if I can draw this for you, you have to have a prescription for this. But look at this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, those 3 rows of pills are actual birth control pills. Those will give you high levels of estrogen and progesterone. But then the last week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What are those? Placebos. They might as well be Tic Tacs. They're just meant to keep you in the habit of taking a pill every day. This allows, if you are no longer taking estrogen and progesterone pills, what is happening to your estrogen and progesterone levels? They go down. You know why they go down naturally? You're not pregnant. And so what will your body do now that your estrogen and progesterone levels are low? You will have your period. You will shed your lining, and then you will regrow it. And then you'll shed it again, regrow it again, shed it again, regrow it again. All right, we'll do more birth control later. Let's get back to this. I want to now go to the second part of today's lesson. What time are we out of here? Wow, 9 minutes. Okay, second stage is the, actually, no, excuse me, my fault. Not second stage yet, my bad. Ovulation, I want to talk about that first. Cross out second stage. Let's do ovulation real quick. What is there a minor spike in? What hormone? Did you get it earlier? There's a minor spike in FSH and a huge spike in LH, which is luteinizing hormone. And here's the really cool fact that would freak out a guy. The ovarian wall ruptures. I mean, it literally blasts an egg cell out of there. Sometimes females can get little ovarian cysts, which are the result of ovulation. You still with us, Grace, or are you in dreamland? Hopefully, where will your ovary blast an egg cell towards? A fallopian tube. One to 2% of women expel multiple oocytes. What would that lead to? A multiple birth pregnancy. Later, I will tell you the difference between identical twins, fraternal twins, parasitic twins, conjoined twins, all that stuff. Okay, now we're ready for stage 2. This is called the luteal phase. Well, where we last left off with your follicle, it looked like this. Looked like Pac-Man spitting out some bad sushi. This is a ruptured follicle. What happens to it? The egg cell is now gone. Hopefully it's in the fallopian tube. The ruptured follicle is going to become the corpus luteum. It becomes this. Looks like a fluffy donut. This is called the corpus luteum. This is the luteal in the luteal phase. So girls, you have this in your ovary after ovulation. The corpus luteum supplies high levels of progesterone and estrogen. Let's see if you remember some of your hormones. And I will admit, I'll be the first to admit, trying to remember what all these hormones do all at the same time can be very confusing. That's why I want to give you multiple opportunities to try to remember. What would high levels of estrogen and progesterone do to a woman's uterus? I'll give you a choice. Will it cause her to maintain her endometrium or to shed her endometrium? I heard shed and I heard maintain. We're talking high levels of estrogen and progesterone. Maintain. Why would you want to maintain your endometrium? What? What, Alyssa? Oh, now when I ask you, you get all shy. Anyone? Why would you want to have a maintained endometrium? To try to support pregnancy. So this corpus luteum is supplying high levels of these two hormones to support. What has to happen in order for pregnancy? It's an I word that the embryo has to do in your uterus. What is it, Scout? Not incubate, implant. It has to implant first. This supports implantation. All right. Now, rising levels of estrogen and progesterone build up the endometrium. So what organ is that affecting? The uterus. So what happens when these two hormone levels drop, guys? Yes. Yes, Isabella, it sheds. And think of this. Estrogen and progesterone are the sex hormones. When these two hormones are in low levels, does a woman typically feel like having sex? No. A woman generally wouldn't want to have sex on her period. There's cramping, there's low levels of hormones. It's a totally different vibe. So it makes sense that when these hormone levels go down and the endometrium is being shed, sex is like on the very, 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 very end of the priority list. This is not really going to happen. This happens when pregnancy doesn't occur, or excuse me, this occurs when implantation doesn't happen. Okay, so rising levels of it, when these hormones decline, the endometrium sheds. When it comes to these hormones declining, if implantation hasn't happened in 10 days, the corpus luteum disintegrates or degrades. If implantation has not occurred within 10 days since ovulation, the corpus luteum degenerates. So the corpus luteum is making those estrogen and progesterone levels. So that's going to cause estrogen and progesterone to go down. And that's going to cause her to shed her lining and start all over. And I'll say start all over. Okay, we didn't finish today, but we'll get the last little bit. Should take 5 minutes tomorrow. Then we will get into the ovarian cycle. Please hold on to the handout that I provided you and bring it to class tomorrow. You will need it.